cannot happen as fast as that. So, what are the other methods? Collecting feedback from learners. We're looking at evaluation, other evaluation techniques. You can also be collecting feedback from others, what we call nominal group technique. And this is a technique for generating ideas in groups and reflecting on them. It is sometimes similar to what we call brainstorming. And an NGT meeting normally involves 8 stages. 1, asking questions. We put them in groups like brainstorming. Asking questions, writing individual responses, then listing the responses down and clarifying the responses themselves. It's the activity. And evaluating and ranking the responses. Then discussing them, and then you have a plenary for that. That is also part of an evaluation process which you can have, apart from the one that you do in class. So with that one at least, we come to the end of part 3. And we were thinking at this moment we could be nearing break time. Yes, Dr. Yusuf.
I wanted to ask you, according to the presentation that you gave, there was a teacher, a tutor, and a learner. So those seems to me as 3 persons involved in the learning process. But in our situation here, we have a teacher and a learner. So is it going to be the case that the teacher will also synchronize the tutor in our scenarios, as far as the explanations are concerned?
Okay, thank you very much for the observation. Sometimes we've been using some words concurrently, like a lecturer, a teacher, and a tutor. Sometimes they do the same thing. Oh, and a trainer as well. Because all of them are actively involved in the process of inseminating learning.
To the learners.
Yeah, to the learners. But however, as we grow bigger, we will soon be having maybe tutors as assistants to lecturers to carry out what we're going to introduce soon, the tutorials. And we'll be calling them tutorial assistants. After you've taught a lesson, then every lesson must have a tutorial, must have a session of brainstorming, of discussing, of interaction with the students to understand more. Because we recognize the fact that the time that we have in a lesson sometimes is not sufficient enough to exhaustively discuss and come to a conclusion and understanding a topic area. So a tutorial session gives you an extra time with the students, and with a tutorial assistant, it gives them more time and time of interaction, time of asking questions, time of understanding more the lessons that will be carried in the class. So usually, tutorial sessions follow every topic area. It is not what people think sometimes that you have one tutorial. No. Every lesson should have a tutorial session. And on top of that, you can then also have a session, a one-on-one session with your students once the classes are not very big. And that could be weekly. You could have a 2-hour session where you are meeting students 10 minutes, where you discuss with them one-on-one the challenges, the understanding of concepts and subject areas, their challenges, and then you set goals for them individually, such that on the next session that you meet them again, they should have at least also achieved some of the targets that they had indicated, overcome some of the problem areas that they had also encountered and indicated in the previous meeting. That becomes, it improves on the learner's ability, it improves on you achieving your objectives for the teaching and learning strategies. So those ones will be introduced as we go along, because they are good practices in industry, and they are actually proven to bring about the best outcomes for students
Actually, the reason why I brought it up is I was a teaching assistant and a tutorial sometime.
Right.
And the best way the students learn is when they are attending questions or answering questions with their tutors. Because tutors are meant to guide them into understanding what they taught in the week. And when they do the tutorials, they have to come to ask questions that they have not understood, not attend the tutorials in class. So that's a very good bridging strategy as far as teachers and students are concerned.
And usually, actually, in good practice, what I'm also exposed to, that you, the lecturer, you had to also have preparation of the tutorial session, and you also include it as the lesson plans and the PowerPoint presentations that you have. So you have, this is the lesson plan, this is the lesson notes, and this is the tutorial notes. And we were encouraged in tutorial sessions to lower the veil. You be more freer and interactive with the students, such that you get into their minds to understand what exactly couldn't they ask in class, what are their insecurities, what were the hard areas, what things would they suggest for you to include maybe in your teaching sessions. Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Jackson.
what you are saying is very good, and you know, we believe in action, or we are action oriented. Can you briefly give us, like, if I happen to have given you like a module, microfinance to handle in class, in like 5 minutes or 2 minutes, you can demonstrate us for us on the board on how you can arrange that issue, whereby you can make sure that that environment is created of having the lecturing, the tutorial, and some of the other stuff we talk about. Just 5 minutes as we wait for our tea. James, I know is complaining.
Oh, James is complaining.
I wonder, the man complaining of what about this?
Those are the benefits of being married.
You have to mention it. We wonder whether we are pleased.
Maybe your neighbors.
Let me look for an example from my files here, which we could. Yes, Professor.
Thank you very much. Also, in addition, or to supplement what tutorials or tutorial assistants do, is in most cases you may get these senior lecturers who most of the time don't have ample time to spend in class. What they normally do, they come, they introduce a course, they give guidelines, and these tutorial assistants take over and take the task of explaining deeply to those students. In other words, also sometimes the senior lecturer or the professors, they can even set a group of questions and you request a tutorial assistant to submit some few questions for assignment, whereby the tutorial assistant can be in position to follow up how the assignments are being done and eventually mark the assignments under the guidance of professor or any person whom he or she will be assisting. Tutorial assistant, briefly, it is just an assistant assisting the doctor, the whatever, who is the owner of the course. They happen to deliver it together. But to a certain extent, he or she is the tutorial assistant who normally explains deeply what the course is about. And sometimes we have these old-timer professors with the big beards, you know. They don't want to be disturbed in class. Some of you have ever met them. So when they come to class, students are hesitant to pose questions the way they can pose a question to a tutorial assistant. That is how the doctor said that now you have to be freer a bit during the tutorials. But you don't expect most of the time those old professors to be freer. They are tough, but once you bring in this tutorial assistant, normally they are young, almost of the same age with the students, so it also covers, and I think that is what you wanted to mean. Thank you, sir.
Okay. The question again, Jesse?
Just I wanted to have the guidelines.
Some,
Not some.
Jesse is looking for just a sample
Example
of how tutorials are conducted.
how tutorials are conducted.
Yes, yes.
Okay. What? In supplement to what he said, I'm not going to divert from what he has said a lot. What you do in tutorials, for example, class time. Class contact time is time constrained. You go to class, as we've seen earlier on here, with a lesson plan, with everything timed. And the time you have in class is limited to what you have planned for. Now, when you go in class, you probably, nothing is perfect because when we plan lessons, it is like it's like we are assuming everything is going to go
as planned.
But in reality, when we go to class, things don't always move. There's a difference between planned and actual. You go to class, you plan a lesson, you reach there, the lesson which you expected was going to be very easy to the class, turns out to be the opposite. You spend most of the time on questions. Now, when these questions dominate the session, the outcome or the result is you're not going to finish the lesson in time. By the time you come to the end of the lesson, where you had expected the students to have outcomes of 95%, they've come up with 40 or 30. Then it means you are thinking, probably I could go and have this class again. Now, you don't have that time on the timetable. But if you have a tutorial session, now the tutorial session gives you that opportunity to go back and simplify the problem areas that you have experienced in class. 1. 2, you are also going to address and listen to the reasons as to why what you were teaching had proved to be a problem. And you are going to address and find solutions for it. Because at that level, you have all the time in the world and the chance and the freedom to explore. Why was this concept hard? Didn't you have prior knowledge to it? Yeah, you can use any of this. There's nobody here.
Additional projects.